Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining today's webinar. I'm your host today, Quinn Eddy with OneCloud, and today's focus is leading practices for Anaplan integration. I used to work for Anaplan and love the product, and we actually use it internally as well. So some of these practices that we are showcasing today actually we use internally as well. And also just to point out that some of our partners and customers that also use OneCloud in combination with their business also have added to the best practices overview that we're going to showcase. So let's get started. So a little bit about OneCloud and just our support for Anaplan. So the mission for OneCloud is to connect the enterprise, and the mission for Anaplan is provide connected planning. So you put those two together, and that really actually creates a very nice synergistic relationship between connecting the enterprise in support of connected planning. Before we get into too much detail, I just want to give you a little bit of the agenda about what we're going to cover here today. So bottom line is, how do we support connected planning through the Anaplan framework as well as through the OneCloud integration platform? We're going to really focus most of our time here today on a show and tell of OneCloud through different lenses. First lens are certain utilities that we can be used for Anaplan, data management for Anaplan, and workflow for Anaplan. And at the end, we'll also have Q&A. And I'd also like to just point out a few housekeeping things. If you do have any Q&A, please use the toolbar in the Zoom client and just pop up your questions. You can do that anonymously, or you can do that with your name. Love, obviously, as much Q&A as possible. And we'll wrap it up, as I said, at the end with a Q&A session. So this webinar is also being recorded. And after this webinar, we'll send out a recording link for people to see it if they have to drop early. So let's move just a bit further here just to learn a bit more about the OneCloud platform. So the OneCloud platform is comprised of two primary components. The first component, and I'll use my laser pointer here, is the OneCloud Integration Studio. The OneCloud Integration Studio is, if you think about ETL, extract, transform, and load, it's like the bookends of the extract and load. So the Integration Studio has the native connectivity to the applications, various systems of record, or products like Anaplan. So it's able to actually work with those interfaces to be able to, let's say, pull data from a system and move it into Anaplan. But in between that, we have what's called OneCloud Data Prep. And OneCloud Data Prep is designed to transform and map data and harmonize that content between application sets. So in summary, the OneCloud platform has these two primary components to really bring that connected enterprise together so that you can have better connected planning and better connected reporting. Just a little more detail, the Integration Studio that you see here on the left, this is the select and connect interface. So this is where you can, from a blank palette, be able to select and connect and bring different commands onto the Integration Studio and then design your integration as you see fit. So for example, if I want to pull data from Workday and I want to, for example, incorporate an approval, and then once it's been approved, push that data to Anaplan, that's where Integration Studio comes in. On the right-hand side, however, we have the Data Prep platform. And the Data Prep platform is, or capability is designed to provide a quick and easy way to transform and map data in a tabular construct that's very interactive and allows people to really own those integrations, or own those transformations in a very easy to understand fashion. So if you know Excel, for example, you'll be very familiar with how to actually use data prep. So a lot of the constructs or a lot of the concepts are very similar. We're actually going to go through the demonstration here today. We're actually going to be touching upon both of these products. But again, just so people have a feel for what the products can do and what the platform can do, these again are the two primary components of the integration platform, the OneCloud integration platform. So let's just talk a little bit about the Anaplan and the integration journey. So I'm sure if you're on this webinar, most likely you've are an Anaplan user, or partner or someone that's familiarity with the Anaplan platform. And primarily, a lot of times when you get data into Anaplan, you start with things like Excel and flat files and so forth to get that in to really build out your first use case. And if you're starting to use Anaplan as well, it's also a very good approach to actually deploy what's called a data hub. Our perception of this is actually, this is where Integration Studio and Data Prep come right in and can be added and add value straight away out of the gate. So with OneCloud Data Prep, for example, we can get that data Anaplan ready and brought into the data hub to facilitate things like those FP&A or initial use cases. But as you start to expand that connected planning journey, so does the connected enterprise requirement start to really bubble up. And that's where, for example, different types of applications can be added in. And that's the scalability where the Integration Studio can connect to a whole variety of different types of web-based applications like Workday or NetSuite, Salesforce, HubSpot, so forth and so on. And then, of course, with the on-premises or legacy applications, OneCloud has those native adapters to start to really build out, again, additional use cases to support connected planning in that connected enterprise journey. And then finally, of course, perhaps you want to take that enriched data that's sitting in Anaplan and push that into, let's say, reporting platforms like Snowflake, Tableau, or Power BI. All of this can be facilitated through the Integration Studio as well as through data prep to ensure that data is harmonized and mapped between each of these application sets for the most effective connected planning experience. So with that backdrop and with that understanding of the OneCloud platform, I'd like to start to drill into various different utilities for Anaplan. So this is really where we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of this webinar. Probably, again, if you've been in the Anaplan ecosystem for a while, some of these different types of operations, there are a lot of different solutions out there, and we're going to drill into each one of these different use cases here, like set today's date function, or getting and setting current period, or fetching workspace and model stats for alerting about model performance, or the keep alive function to ensure that your Anaplan model always stays in memory. So let's drill into each one of these in due course here. And the way we're going to look at this basically on each one of these use cases, we're going to talk about a new leading practice versus what is the existing practice that we see out there today. So I'm going to start with the leading practice, which is using the OneCloud platform, and then we're going to drill into each of the other ones. But basically, inside OneCloud, we can create what's called a OneCloud chain. And that OneCloud chain would allow you to, for example, create what's called a template. And that template can then be used to actually drive and create or set, I should say, the current date, as well as the current date in multiple time zones. So the use case there is maybe you have different line items inside Anaplan that you want to update to reflect time zones for different types of maybe model calculations. And of course, you'd want those date line items to be dynamically updated inside of that Anaplan model. So that's where we bring together a OneCloud chain to actually update that. And we're actually going to show this here live, but again, just a little preview of what we're going to be showing. So the standard approaches we see out there, of course, are manual. I think everyone on the phone can understand. We go into the module, we update the current date. We could certainly write a script, and out there on the Anaplan community, there are some scripts out there that actually will, for example, fetch the current system time and update inside Anaplan. And then, of course, with Hyperconnect as well, or Informatica Cloud, you can also transform a template there and upload that to Anaplan. So those are the different current approaches here. And what we'd like to do is highlight and show how this can be done inside OneCloud. The other thing I'll also highlight here at the bottom is a OneCloud template available. So for these initial use cases, we also have templates, and I'll show you actually how we can use a template inside of our OneCloud environment and quickly deploy all these solutions. And so you can add these quickly into your own OneCloud tenant. The next leading practice I like to explore here is the idea of being able to dynamically set the current date. And this is really in combination, for example, with Anaplan's rollover functionality, so that you can always ensure that you have, for example, 4 months actual and 8 months forecast. So basically you can have a full year forecast inside your plan to get that full picture. Oftentimes that you want to be able to actually update this simultaneously across multiple models all at the same time. And oftentimes maybe you want to have that be updated automatically without thinking. So basically set and forget, and have that update happen perhaps at midnight, so that calculations start to use the current time settings. Well, the standard approaches are, I think we can all guess, would be manually updating each of those modules inside Anaplan on those time-based settings. You could write a script, but that would be using the new Anaplan REST API to make the update, or with Hyperconnect, there's really no capability right now available to do this. So this is something that's native to OneCloud, and being able to actually get and set those periods. And I'll show how that's actually going to be done here in practice. So again, just a preview of what we're going to be demonstrating here in a minute. And again, there's also a OneCloud template available for this chain as well. The next new leading practice out there is being able to actually dynamically check the model statistics, model and workspace statistics. Now, the use case behind this is, let's say, for example, you have a model and there are some limitations basically on the size that a model can be, and you want to be able to get some preemptive alerting ahead of time. So maybe, for example, your model size is approaching the maximum that Anaplan recommends, or maybe it's approaching the maximum size of your license, whatever that might be. So with OneCloud, we can actually schedule a chain to actually interrogate the workspace and model statistics, get the memory usage, and then provide back some preemptive notifications back to the end user or back to the administrator about how those resources are being used. This again, of course, helps with optimization and just a whole host of things that can be done. And with OneCloud, we have a template that can do this, and it's very easy to set up and configure. And again, I'll walk you through how this is done. But standard approaches, I think we can all guess. We can mainly check the workspace and model usage right from the admin console inside Anaplan. But again, that's not something that can be scheduled. You could write a script. There are, again, new REST API calls. The new Anaplan REST API would allow you to do this, but you'd probably have to write it something like Python, where you'd parse the output and then also incorporate the logic. And then with Hyperconnect, currently there's no capability to do this today. So this is, again, a really useful feature, something that can be deployed across all your models to get those real-time stats. And again, can be scheduled to go out every hour or every day or every week, whatever makes sense for your environment. And then the final one here that I'm going to talk about is Keep Alive. So Keep Alive here, the concept is that you want to keep the model, the Anaplan model, in memory, so that when an end user actually logs into Anaplan, or if the end user doesn't want to have, or maybe you have an integration that needs to run, and sometimes it takes a long time to load that data, you want to just basically ensure that that model is in memory. So with OneCloud, we can actually just run what's a standard import action or an export action. In this case, I like export actions, just to simply keep those models. So it's really very similar to what you might do in Anaplan Connect, but here we have a nice template that does that. This can all be done in parallel without having to write any type of script behind it. But let's look at the different approaches. With the web, none, unless you actually manually go in and always log in to that particular model. Script, we can schedule an Anaplan Connect script to import or export that action, with an import or export action. Or we can use Hyperconnect, of course, through their schedule to run a job to actually run that same import or export action. So that's, again, 3 different ways or the common standard approaches. And now we'll actually start to take a look at this in practice. So without further ado, I'm actually going to get out of presentation mode here and pop over to OneCloud here and bring us into the environment. So let me just very briefly walk you through quickly about what is OneCloud and so forth. And at a high level, this is the administrative console. This gives you a thumbnail sketch of what's happening, all the activity, so forth. We have navigation over here on the left. Things like connections. I won't belabor that much, but we create native Anaplan connections based upon certificate auth or basic auth or different types of things. And then what I'm actually going to really spend my time on here actually is back in workspaces, back into the development environment here. So I actually have here my different chains, demo 1, demo 2, and demo 3. And let's just right now just focus on demo 1. And as you can see, I'm actually using OneCloud's filtering capability, so I can actually just filter out the chains that are based upon this. So right away, we can see here, again, the filters that have been applied for these particular chains. So let's take a look and see how this actually works. So let me just move my video over to the left there, and let's take a look. So here, I'm going to go ahead and open this up. And this basically is is a screenshot that we saw earlier, but this is the chain that we're referring to. So I want to just walk you through how this is set up. So the first thing here basically is I need to create an Anaplan load ready file. And how we do this actually is use something called OneCloud Handlebars. And Handlebars is a templating approach where you can actually templatize the file that you want to upload. And it's very simple. So here, basically, if you're familiar with a CSV file, you can see here time zone, comma, date. And here I have different time zones, UTC, EST, SGT, and then SGT_3. So all these are going to be templatized or basically replaced by these variables down here. And what's really nifty about this is I can actually use what are called runtime variables. So I have here basically the chain execution date time. So I'm actually going to use that variable right here, and I'm going to perform basically what's called a variable transformation. So I'm going to take that exact date time right down to the millisecond, and I'm actually going to put that into the format of year, month, day, which is what Anaplan expects in that line item that's been formatted as date. So right away, we get the date in a perfect format for Anaplan. And then what I do here is I have other things like this. I was UTC. EST basically is saying, great, I'm going to bring that data in on UTC, but I want to convert that to Eastern time. So I'm actually going to just automatically just convert that time to EST, and off we go. And as you can probably imagine, I also want Singapore, so it's going to come in at UTC, and my target's going to be Singapore time. All this is out-of-the-box functionality native to OneCloud. And the last one I'll just highlight here basically is I'm going to bring it in, but I want to subtract 3 hours. So I can actually do that date math right away straight inside OneCloud. But of course, you could also do that date math inside Anaplan as well. But that is, again, just highlighting some of those capabilities here. So this is basically the heart and soul of this chain is how this template gets created. And then what I do is I convert that template, the output of that template, to a file, because of course Anaplan needs to have either basically a file or a relational upload into the import data source, and then I run those import actions. So basically, just to show how this gets configured, I have my Anaplan workspace, my model, I have my my file resource is international dates, and then I have the output here being the created file of that rendered text output. Actually, it's this one right here, created file. And then I just upload that into Anaplan. So this is the Anaplan upload. And then here I just simply run that import action. And that import action basically is date module from international dates. That's the name of my import action. So boom, that's done. And I'll just, for grins here, I'll come into my date module. And I think actually this has been running as a schedule. So if I look here, okay, great. Yeah, so this is all set. So now I'll come back. So sorry, before I pop off. So now you can see this is obviously January 1st, 1999. We're going to go ahead and run this. Now I'm going to run this manually, but this could of course be scheduled to run every hour, every, how often you want it to run. And it's simultaneously updating all three modules at the same time. So it's going to run the import action for model 1, model 2, and model 3. And just to highlight what we have now, I'll come back again to Anaplan. We'll come back and refresh that. And now we can see that indeed we have the right date. And you can even see here from the Singapore +3, if we add 3 hours to Singapore's timestamp, we're actually now already into June 4th. So that logic definitely worked and came across really, really well. So that's demo number 1. So let's dive in now to demo number 2, or at least, sorry, demo 1, the second part of that. The next one here is to be able to use the new Anaplan Transaction API to both get and set that current period. So just to give you some context about what we're actually doing here. So if you're familiar with how Anaplan time settings work, you'll see here, for example, that I have the current period set to July 21st. Now, I actually want to set that to the current period being June 21st. So we'll actually go ahead and make that update. So, and we'll make that update simultaneously across multiple models. And that could be done in the same way that we just did before. So let's actually open up this chain and we'll see here how this works. So the first thing we do is we have what's called a runtime input. Now this runtime input could also just be dynamically set, but this actually allows for an end user to actually input the value that they want or select that value, which is a really nice handy feature. Then what we do is we will get the results. So we'll get basically the current period. So Anaplan get current period. We have a command designed just for that. And we'll get that and we'll just basically view those results. Then we're going to set the current period. So basically we're going to set the current period. So this is as simple as this. We have these commands out of the box that allow you to just basically, again, add your workspace ID, your model ID, and date. And then we'll check again to see if that's indeed took effect inside Anaplan. So just before I actually spend any more time running this, I'll just show one quick thing in case you're new to OneCloud. Here are all the commands that I mentioned earlier about that we have for Anaplan. So a lot of different native commands designed to do the different operations, both using the classic interface, what you might see in Anaplan Connect, as well as the new transaction API that's out there. So with that, let's just actually go ahead now and execute this. And I'm going to go and run this with inputs. So as I said, we're sitting at July right now. And I want to actually, just for grins, I'm going to set this to May. So we'll go ahead now and run this. So now basically, I just selected that value. And now I'm getting the current period. So we can actually see what the current period is. And the current period now is set to July. So that's what we saw before. And then I'm going to set that value. And then now I'm going to get that value again. So basically, I just got that value back. And you can now see that is 531. Let's actually look at it as it comes out of Anaplan. You can see now that it's May 21st or May 2021. So that now has occurred. And if I go back into Anaplan here, and I actually, now I think I just got to click off this and then re-click on this, you can now see that this indeed is May 21st. So think about the use case there where you can simultaneously update all your models in one chain, and that could be scheduled or that could be end user driven based upon what you want to do and your individual Anaplan implementation. Okay, so the last demonstration, sorry, we're actually going to use, actually, what am I saying last demonstration? We have one more here. Get Anaplan workspace and model stats. So let's now go into here. So this is actually was built from using a template, and I'm actually just going to edit this template straight away. And what we're going to do basically is we're going to list the workspaces. we're going to actually parse each one of those workspaces, and then we're going to actually use something called advanced query to actually check the workspace size. Now, this is a neat feature inside of OneCloud where you can actually use standard SQL. Now, this is not an absolute requirement. We have a template to do that, but with this, we can actually use logic out of the gate. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull down that list, again, of workspaces and models, and I'm going to check for the usage. So let me just actually walk you through this. So let's actually just open this up here. So all I'm doing basically is again, pulling down the list of models available based upon the prior commands. And then here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert those output into different types of information. Now, just as a very high level overview of what we're doing, the data we're getting out of Anaplan when we list the models and workspaces comes out in what's called JSON. OneCloud has a really neat feature to actually convert JSON to a CSV, and it's very simple. So here I'm actually going to create a nice clean CSV file with ID, name, size, workspace, and active state, all based upon basically what's called the JSON path. That's going to come out in a nice, clean, comma-delimited file that I can then query. Think about how you could actually use that with all sorts of different use cases with maybe other types of applications that might provide JSON data. Now, if JSON is new to you at this point, don't worry. We have a lot of help articles out there about how JSON works. But again, just want to show a little bit of what's under the covers and how we're getting to this information. So, but basically, again, we're converting JSON to CSV in this nice command. And then what we're going to do is we're going to actually take that tabular data set and we're going to use what's called SQL, standard query language. And we're actually going to do an inline SQL query against that data. Now, this might look a little complicated, and I don't want to make it look overly complicated here, but basically what we're doing is we're taking that data and we're basically running a SQL query so that we can format it and even order it so that all the workspaces and all the models that have basically any type of high usage come to the top, and then also use this from a notification standpoint. If this looks new to you, don't worry. We have a lot of help articles on this. It's a little more of the advanced side of OneCloud, but the bottom line is you can use inline SQL to transform data as well, but also query that data and apply logic against it. So now I'm going to go ahead and actually execute this. So let's go ahead and run. And now we're going to go and execute this. So it's basically querying the workspaces that are out there. And it's converting that. And it's now listing the models inside that particular workspace. If we look here, for example, we can see that I've got that workspace ID that's coming through. And based upon that workspace ID, it's now going to pull back all my different models models that are associated with that workspace. Then what it's going to do here is it's going to go down and it's going to convert that output, like I talked about, that JSON to CSV. And here we can see what that would look like. So here now we can see that converted output here, ID, name, size, workspace, active states. We can see all that information. And that now we can then bring that into that advanced query. That advanced query ran that query, as I mentioned, and now look at what it's done. It's now ordered this right here and says, oops, it looks like one of these models is actually at a high level. So based upon that, we actually have built-in error handling and warnings, so logic that actually will notify you based upon that information. So we can actually come here to my email, and we can actually see here that I got a notification that, oops, yep, at 12 o'clock, we got a warning, and we actually now also can see what that actually looks like, as well as that same information is now an attachment in an email. So straight away, I preemptively get information about how this is performing. Now think about all the other use cases. You could do this for data validation. You could use this for all different types of applications that are out there. And just to show one additional thing, So this warning that you saw here basically came from, I'll come back into the edit, came from this notifications tab here. So here I got a notification and it's sending it to me. And it's basically saying, please check the following Anaplan model resource usages. And this warning occurred because I had basically on the error handling here, I said, if anything contains high, then set the command result to warning. So straight away, you have this nice branching logic that you can set up and configure, point and click, and configure your own alerts based upon your criteria. So hopefully that makes a bit of sense. I see a number of points of QA coming in. So I'll just defer to the end here, but I really appreciate at least 4 people have asked questions, and keep them coming. So let's get to the last demo here of this first section. And the last demo here is Keep Alive. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm actually going to deploy a template. Now, if we go over to templates right here, templates are something new that we've just added to OneCloud about, I guess, probably December of last year. So not just, but here I've got some templates here designed specifically for Anaplan. And what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to open up this Keep Anaplan model alive. And here is that same model that we saw here. So I'm actually going to create a new chain right from this template. So everything that I just showed, every single OneCloud tenant has that same templates. Again, templates right here. Click on OneCloud and then expand the Anaplan one here, Keep Alive. Here I'm going to click on New Chain. And now I'm just going to say / Keep Alive. And I'm going to select my workspace, demo workspace, select my environment, dev. I'm going to click next. And now I'm going to select my workspace ID. And I'm going to select my model ID, just like that. And click next. And now I'm going to select my connection. And I'm going to use this connection. And I'm going to use a cloud runner. And I'm going to use this file utility. And I'm going to use a cloud runner, just like that. And we're going to go ahead now and submit. So now what that does is it brings that chain into my environment. And now I can actually publish this chain. So I'll publish this chain. And now we're ready to run it. And at this point, I could also come into chain settings, set up a schedule, and have this run, let's say, every 30 minutes, like that. Apply that, save, and then just republish that. And that now becomes a scheduled process. So just like that, I have my Keep Alive script running. You saw it in 30 seconds or less. And we'll now go ahead and run that. And I think you can probably imagine it's just basically running an export action. And I have an export action called Keep Alive. And here's basically what it looks like. And it just ran the export name Keep Alive, which is exactly what we have sitting out there. Here's a little best practice as well. In order to create a Keep Alive script, where are my, see exports. There it is right there. I just go into modules right here and I just simply run an export and I just save that definition. I just call it export Keep Alive. It's just, bogus data. We don't really care about the list of modules, but again, this is something that again will keep that model in memory. Okay, so that's that. We'll go back now to the presentation and we'll get to the second section here of the presentation. So the next section here is focused around data management. So the ability to transform, map, and enrich data to really prep that data to make it Anaplan ready. Model-to-model sync up, something as with the connected planning enterprise, you need to be able to load data into your data hub, then sync up models and maybe other models, sync up to other models and so forth. And then finally, the last one here, which I love, which is really being able to tame the items not located message. If you have a one list item that's missing, or maybe multiple ones that are missing, you can actually get just a subset, or excuse me, just a summary list of those items. So let's dive in. So the new leading practice here is the idea of using OneCloud Data Prep. And as mentioned, Data Prep is designed to harmonize data, provide transformation, mapping, so you get really a common ground of data before you actually load in Anaplan. Oftentimes, you can also think of Data Prep as being able to actually reduce the complexity of those transformations that you might do inside Anaplan, and actually just bring that right into what's called a OneCloud pipeline. And I'll show that to you in a minute. But in the absence of this, standard approaches, we have people that might use Excel, or as just mentioned, a lot of transformation inside Anaplan. Might write scripts, very coded, typically done in Python, that might format that data, prep that data, and so forth. Really more on the transformation side, probably less on the aggregation side. And then Hyperconnect, of course, has a lot of different capabilities around that, but it also tends to be a little more IT focused and less designed for an end user that could actually own their own transformations and so forth. But with data prep, we'll be able to really, again, fine tune and maintain those transformations. So that's what we call getting data Anaplan ready. The next leading practice is model-to-model sync-ups. Inside OneCloud, we can create a chain. We create a chain and we tell it the exact sequence of things that we want to occur. Run this query, pull this data, upload this data, run this import action, run this process, run these other processes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We just basically chain together different commands inside that chain. Standard approaches, again, we can manually execute import or export actions and processes. In Anaplan Connect, we can easily write a script, but again, you're writing a script, you got to schedule that script and so forth that run those processes and import actions in the sequence you want. And then finally, Hyperconnect, where we actually can execute those, but you got to schedule them and so forth. So again, other options are out there, but this is how we do it inside OneCloud. And then finally, the items not located messages. So this one, as I mentioned, I really love this one, is because we can create that summary list of repeated missing list items. And how many times have you loaded in data, let's say maybe 1 million records, maybe you have 2 or 3 list items that are missing, and you just get these repeated messages, item not located, item not located, item not located. Let's tame that. So that's what we can do very easily inside OneCloud using that advanced query approach, which I'll demonstrate here shortly. Standard approaches out there is, again, manually run, and you can see the first 100 warnings, Anaplan Connect, but you get this big log file that you got to then read through and parse and so forth. And then, of course, Hyperconnect will also provide those item not located messages, but you got to decipher those warnings. And oftentimes those logs are sitting out on that secure agent out on some remote system. So that can be a little barrier to entry as well. So let's get into the next demo here. And now we'll pop back over and we'll come back here to my build. And now I'm gonna click on demo 2 and turn off demo 1. So filtering this, this is my chain here. So we got a chain here that does a lot of different things. And I'm not gonna focus on every single one, but in this case here, what it's gonna do is it's gonna pull data from Workday. It's gonna pull data from Workday, and then we're gonna map and transform that data, basically prepare that data before it actually gets pushed into various different target systems. The next thing that it's also gonna do is it's going to run different upload sequences, and then again, do that model-to-model sync. So let's just dive over quickly to this command here. So popping in here, and this is where we have actually the data prep. This is where we're actually going to take the columns that are coming out of Workday and map those right in. And on this tab here, actually, I'll just pop over here just to show you a little bit. So data prep right here. And here I've got what's called a pipeline. And this pipeline here basically allows me to actually see that same data interactively. And then down here, I have my pipeline. So out of the gate, for example, I can do things like insert row numbers. So right away, you can see that. It's going to hide that to get a little more real estate. And I can add different types of transformations as I see fit. So this, again, makes it really easy, really approachable for someone to really own their own transformations. The next thing I can do is I can actually create basically another transformation leveraging Excel formulas. So here, for example, I'm going to actually round the data to 2 points of precision. And now you can see here that on this step, I now have a new column called value, and it's been rounded to, again, those 2 points of precision. And then the final thing I just want to highlight here on data prep is the whole concept of mapping. So here, basically, I've got a map, and I won't spend too much time on this because we are getting a little short here on time. But here, basically, the idea is based upon a certain product and a certain market, I want to have a different brand. So, for example, here, if I'm in the New York region or the Connecticut region, I'll just open this up. New York or Connecticut region, I want to be able to map that to Big Apple Cola. But if I'm in the Massachusetts region, I want to call that Colonial Cola. So again, kind of a silly example, but this mapping really enriches the data before we actually use it. So if I pop again back to my pipeline here, and we pop now onto that brand map, we can now see that mapping being applied, enriched into that environment. So now basically we have that output data prepped and ready to load into Anaplan, into Snowflake, into Power BI, or wherever we want to push that. So let me now pop back to the Anaplan, to the Integration Studio, to that chain we were just looking at, and I'll edit this. And now we'll actually just pop down to the next point here, which is an approval. Now, actually not approval, the chains for the commands for Anaplan. So here, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually upload that data to the map beverage data location site Anaplan with that pipeline output. So that's what we're seeing here. And then after that, once I upload that, I want to run my metadata updates, my data imports, and my model-to-model sync up. So these are just actions and processes that I sequence in the order that I want. And again, I just come over here and let's say I want to run a process. I can just simply drag that onto the palette, and then I'm off to the races. So that's how easy it is to actually create your different sequences inside OneCloud. I'm going to go ahead and delete that out. And the other thing I want to highlight while I'm in here is the ability here to actually get those kickouts. So what you can see here is I'm going to run a data import, but here I actually have a condition on warning. So if on warning, what I wanted to do is actually fetch those logs from that data import, and then I want to get those kickouts. So the output that this command has, or the prior command has, is basically the Anaplan zipped up import action logs. So that's what we're actually bringing across, and we're going to actually use those. We're going to unzip it, and we're going to get the kickouts here in a very simple SQL query. Select distinct brand from import kickouts. That's all we're going to do. And that's going to give me a distinct list of items in that log file that just came out of Anaplan. So let's go ahead now and actually, see, I did make a small change here. So let's go ahead and publish this. And go ahead and execute. Oh, looks like I was actually already running something before. So let me just go ahead and stop that and now run that. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and run this chain. And so it's pulling that data from Workday. And I do apologize. We are going to probably run over a little bit here on this webinar. It was meant to be for 45 minutes, but if you can stay on for another 10 minutes, we'll probably be able to wrap this up. So here, basically, we're actually also showcasing another component of OneCloud here, where it's actually approving that data. So here I actually have basically an approval, and we also will get an email around that as well, but I'll just actually stick here. We got an approval here that's basically saying, hey, I'm ready to actually approve. Do you want to approve this data before actually pushing into Anaplan and Snowflake and so forth? I say, yep, looks great. But update the maps for next month, like that, okay? And you can see here that actually we have a bunch of SKUs, a lot of, that didn't actually get loaded or weren't mapped, basically. So we're basically going to see those same SKUs with 200-10, 200-20 subsequently here when we actually run the Anaplan job. So here, come back, and you can see here that it's actually going on to the next steps. It's actually loading that data into Snowflake, into Anaplan, into Power BI. And we'll just let this finish up. And you can also interactively see all these steps as it's running through. So you can see that indeed executed. And you can also see here that it's doing those model-to-model sync-ups. So what's cool about this is you can see here that indeed it detected that there was a warning, and that the warning went down this path here. And from here, it got the kickouts. And here, basically, we can see that those same kickouts are the same ones that we saw previously, that those items actually indeed were not there. So straight away, instead of having to, again, parse through that log file, we get just a nice discrete list of items here just by using a little bit of SQL in line right inside what's called advanced transformation or advanced query inside of OneCloud. So that's the model syncs, the different the kickouts, and the ability to and the data preparation as well. So let's pop now back just to the last section of this webinar. That's workflow. And here we're going to basically focus just on self-service from an Anaplan dashboard and integrated approval workflows. So I'll actually talk about the integrated approval workflows first. We actually just demonstrated that. That's the whole idea of approve your data before you move your data. And then self-service from an Anaplan dashboard, which really makes it easy for end users to be able to actually run and own their own integration. So the idea here basically is you can have what's called an action link inside OneCloud, where you can actually invoke a OneCloud chain, even with runtime inputs. And that runtime input could do a whole host of different things. And we're just basically going to showcase it in a very simple chain here to basically update a SQL database. Standard approaches, web none, script. You could do something with Python and Flask to build a web service. In HyperConnect, currently, there's no way to do this. So that's that. And then the last one is integrated approval workflows. The idea also here is the ability to have runtime input, so you could actually provide your own inputs into the chain, as well as even upload your own file so that that OneCloud chain can leverage that. So maybe you want to collect files from maybe different geographic regions and have it uploaded to Anaplan. You could actually use OneCloud to do that. So standard approach is none, none, and none at this point. So let's get to the demo, and then we'll open up the Q&A. And again, my apologies for running over a little late here today. So let's actually dive in here. So I'll pop over to my dashboard, and I'm actually going to look into budget review. So here, budget review basically is I'm going to simple dashboard here. I've got some drop-down boxes. I got a module that's been published, and I have here a line item that's actually linking to an action link inside OneCloud. So this line item basically will invoke a OneCloud process with whatever I select here. So if I select, for example, Massachusetts, and I refresh this, you can see now that we have Massachusetts data, and I want to now maybe make my updates. So maybe here I'll put in here, I don't know, just to put this to be 560 like that. And now I'm going to refresh my database. What this is going to do here is I'm already signed into OneCloud, and you can see already that it's taken in the Massachusetts 100-10, and I'm now going to start that process. At which point it's going to update the Anaplan environment. And now it's actually going to approve, ask for an approval. And I have another approval here. Basically, I'm saying push to the data warehouse, 100-10, Massachusetts. The subtotal is this. Go ahead and approve that. This is all just a part of the chain. Looks good. Approve that, and then come back here. And then now it actually is now going to push that to the data warehouse. I actually have over here a test table. Just execute that, and now we can see that 560 also came across inside of my relational database here And this is sitting on some on-premise database, but again, just to highlight that we took data from Anaplan, transactionally pushed that in and pulled that data right back and pushed that into an Anaplan, into a relational database. And then the last demo here, just very simple demo, just want to highlight here. Let's go to demo 3. Demo 2 is the human integration workflow. And basically here, as mentioned, we have this concept of runtime input. So here, for example, I could create a form where I could actually, ask people to, provide text or a drop-down box, or provide a number, or add any type of input that I want. And this input basically goes into what's called a runtime input. I can then use those inputs as variables to actually drive other types of operations. In this case here, I'm just going to create a file. So chain executor ID, input 1, input 2, input 3. So I'm actually going to build, add to an Anaplan module. And then here, I'm going to also request a file get uploaded from me as well. So here, basically, I'm going to execute this and run this with inputs. So here, I'll just say test Anaplan webinar, like that. Input 2, this is a drop-down box. So I'll say value B. And then here, I'll just put in 101 like that. Okay. So go ahead and start that. And then what it's going to do is it's going to run that. And it's also now waiting for me to also upload some files. So you can see here that it is running this in parallel, not completed, but here I need to actually upload a file. So this is something, again, that you could allow for your maybe regional managers or somewhere to actually maybe upload their data. And in this case here, I just have a simple database or a table that I'm going to upload. And I'm actually going to upload that and then subsequently push that into Anaplan. Once that's complete, it's going to run a process. And that process here, if I pop back over, once that's complete, it's going to come back here to test inputs. And if I refresh this like that, we can now see here that we have that brand new entry right here, 101, test Anaplan webinar, so forth and so on. So hopefully, again, that interactive live demo helped to provide some insight in how OneCloud can actually really support the whole connected planning journey inside Anaplan. So with that, I know that I'm over time, but I'm going to go ahead and open it up here to some Q&A here. So let me just do that. So one person asked, just from the top, I see on the today's date template that you have multiple upload, run, import actions. Do you have to do this for each model, or is there a way to loop over each model in the workspace? Great question. You can absolutely loop over. That's not a problem at all. That's actually a much more robust way of doing it. We'll save that for maybe a follow-up question, but we have a lot of support articles on our website around how to loop and so forth. But a nice use case of that would be to pull a list of models and loop over each one and update them. So great question. Next one, is there a way to dynamically calculate the prompt but allow the user to override it? Think about that. I have to get back to you on that. Let me think about that one, and then get back to you, and we'll actually try to find out. We'll try to actually put that on our Q&A and then provide a link to that Q&A inside of our community. Do you have a command to export model history? Yes, we absolutely do have a command to export model history. Just very briefly on that, I'll just go back to execute here and just highlight that. So here we have export model history and run run model export history. What this does is it actually exports it out in a perfect format that's always consistent, which really makes it easy so you can actually interrogate the model history inside Anaplan for maybe audit history or what have you. Another question, how do we get access to templates? Are they exported to a file that we can import into our own OneCloud app? So that's a great question. Just to answer that, I'll do that live here. Everybody that has access to OneCloud can actually access the OneCloud templates. These templates we maintain, so you can see these version numbers here. And if you click on, again, OneCloud and keep Anaplan model, or keep Anaplan model live, you can actually, again, bring this in and create a new chain straight from that template. And that will actually take the configuration and bring it into your own environment. Another one here, can you use specific logic to select recipients for the email notification? Yes, you absolutely can. Thanks for asking that. I won't go into detail on how you do that, but the very quick answer is that you could create logic maybe based upon domain name or based upon email address, all sorts of ways you could do that, but you could easily create branching logic based upon the recipients, based upon the condition, based upon what's going on that's out there. Another question, can we upload maps to data prep or do we have to enter them in the web? Very good question. The answer is yes, we can absolutely upload maps. I'll just actually just show very quickly here how that's done. We click here on maps and I have here brand map. And here I can even upload or download various different maps. So this is how this works. And it's super easy to actually create this. You can even later this year actually dynamically upload this, let's say from a maybe a relational database or something like that. So got some nice comments. Appreciate all those. And it's great to also see so many familiar faces out there as well. So really appreciate everyone's time here today. Again, my apologies for going over time, but hope this was helpful. And as mentioned, this has been fully recorded and we'll be sending out a link to the webinar here shortly. Thanks again. Have a great day and